Hi, Darren. Nice to meet you here
Pleasure.
in IC in Hamburg. And what are your impressions from the ICS High Performance in Hamburg so far? And what made you participate?
Well, the ISC is definitely one of the most important shows we have in Europe. It is a show that is very, very concentrated around our focus business areas. We're talking about high scale AI deployment and this kind of the HPC. So the large scale deployments that are the center of our business model.
And can you briefly describe or introduce the new products that you are presenting at ICS?
Well, it's basically what we've done is what we've presented here on new products. We've presented two main pillars of product scenarios. Obviously, our very high density, extremely efficient AI workhorses probably the right word for it, and also our extreme capabilities, what we have on containerized AI data centers. The biggest advantage with these kind of AI data centers is that we can reduce the average deployment time from a normal data center like 18 to 24 months. We can reduce that down to 4 with 90% prefabrication in our own factories, which obviously if we keep the delivery time so short, that means the investment bridge between the bridge between invest and return on investment is much shorter. And AI deployment, there's always a business model behind that. So it has to be operational as fast as possible and turn into a real revenue stream for the operator.
Oh, this is very, very interesting. And are these wonderful advantages also an USP of these new products you have?
Well, USP, I wouldn't say it was a USP, but based on the experience we've already collected, because we've done numerous of these projects where we've deployed 113 containers of high density AI hardware in 13 days. This is the kind of executional excellence and acceleration that we can provide through our global manufacturing capabilities and logistics that really make a difference. Because with you're looking at AI deployments, the big guys, they have like 70 to 80% GPU utilization. The smaller guys, 15 to 30. So if you have a long cycle between investment and deployment and token output, then in many cases, the opportunity is already passed before you deploy. So that's why the speed of execution is critical for the business model of the operator of the data center.
And as you already mentioned, the ROE is a very high now. It's very good for the enterprises and your customers.
Well, if they do it correctly and they can turn it around fast enough, yes. Yeah. But if they have a way too slow execution cycle and the window of opportunity for a certain off-taker has passed, then they have a problem.
Can you explain a bit how do KAYTUS solutions differ from solutions of your competitors?
Well, the solution itself, I mean, from a hardware perspective, they're probably comparable. Yeah, it's just the small things that make a big difference. Yeah? So our systems are very much tuned off to efficiency, especially when we're looking at the power consumption. That's a major factor, especially here in Europe, with electrical power being constrained and a very high kilowatt price here, especially here in Central Europe, in the Nordics, and it looks a bit better, but here it's a major factor. So energy consumption and energy efficiency is critical to have a profitable working AI installation. Then on top of that, we have our own um, management software suite. And on top of the normal energy savings that can be achieved, with this management suite and very, very intelligent GPU load balancing, we can save another 20% of power on air-cooled installations and 10% on liquid-cooled installations. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at, multiple megawatt installations, that turns out to be a lot of money at the end of the year.
Yes, it's a problem here, especially here in Germany. Energy is very, very expensive. So
yes,
it's a big point for enterprises and your customers.
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah,
that's why we lay a very massive focus on this area.
Mm-hmm. And which target industries do you have?
Well, AI, there is no industry that is not a target industry. I mean, AI is here to stay. There is no question about that. And it will continue to penetrate deeper and deeper into our lives, into our social structure, the way we live, the way we work, even the way we think. So at the moment, in typical Central European enterprise customers, they know they need AI. They know that it can drastically improve their efficiency, but a lot of them are not yet quite 100% sure how to actually do that, how to execute that. So that is part of the advisory work that we do with the customers.
Mm-hmm. And in this context, what is your strategy for expanding your business here in Europe, or especially for DACH-Region? Huh?
The strategy is quite simple. We just need to prove and maintain the position that we want to become, and we will become the most trusted AI infrastructure supplier in the market. And we do that not just through the engineering and research capabilities that we have, or the logistics, but also through the whole cycle of deployment. I mean, we help customers from the first time, from the infrastructure design, even data center design, through the execution, the deployment, optimization, so that they can get the maximum monetary output out of the deployed system in the shortest possible time.
Wonderful. Do you have already customers here in our region?
Yes, we do. I'm not privy to mention names at this moment because they're on the NDA, but yes, we do have very high-profile customers, and a lot more are deeply engaged in conversation with us on this subject.
Yeah. Well, AI is everywhere. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's not yet everywhere, but it will be very shortly.
Yeah. So, and what future trends do you see in your market or markets, and how do you prepare your company and your customers for them?
Well, the trends are actually relatively transparent. Yeah, we're going from generation to generation to performance jumps from 3 to 10 times on the previous generation, which means that also parallel to this, the power consumption per unit is also going up. Yeah? Obviously, the performance gain is higher than the power consumption increase. So they are becoming more and more efficient from generation to generation. So the demands on the AI are increasing steadily. And when we have these big models that are being trained for different industries and different verticals, once these models are trained, they will then transfer to the edge. So these models are not going to run in massive data centers with huge AI deployments. Once it becomes an application, it will go to the edge. A typical example for that would be retail. Yeah? That is a typical example where we have running AI models at the edge. In supermarkets, for instance, every supermarket has its own little AI server in the manager's office that monitors the shop, monitors the automatic checkouts, shoplifting detection, all these kind of things. And that's already here now.
Yeah. Yeah, the edge is the edge.
Yeah, exactly. Once the model is trained, it will go to the edge, because only at the edge it can become a working application.
Do you have the the theme or the topic with your customers that they are going back to on-premises solutions?
Depends a lot on the customer and, honestly speaking, a lot on the budget, right? These deployments need a relatively large invest, in some cases, a massive invest. And not every company can finance that just like that. So a lot of this stuff is staying in the data center, typical GPU as a service customers. But yes, in larger enterprises, because of data sovereignty and all this kind of things, a lot of stuff is moving back to on-prem.
Okay.
And it's also a cost issue because the hyperscalers are not cheap, and it's more expensive to get out of the contract than it is to get into one.
Well, what we made as experiences are that customers are going to hybrid solutions, not only cloud, not only on-premise, so hybrid.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a definite trend there, especially highly sensitive IP data tends to be going back to on-prem.
Okay. Yes, we almost arrived at the last question. Do you have partners here in Germany or in Austria and Switzerland in Europe, or who are your partners? Can you say some names for us, or?
Yeah, a couple of partners, because we've done some press releases, so that is already public information. So a couple I can share. We do a lot with the company NEC, which is a very value-added solution provider with their main offices in Düsseldorf. Also with Boston IT that sits in Munich. So they're just two of quite a few. I can mention these two names because we've already done press releases and white papers based on already success cases that we have already deployed with them, with the University of Cologne or the Friedrich Alexander University in Erlangen. So there's been quite a lot of things that we've published already.
So wonderful. And at the very, very last question, when you see the future, it's always my last question. 1-2 years, what do you think will happen until that time?
Oh, in 1 to 2 years, I don't think we will see new things, no question. Especially now going forward, we're moving from generative AI and agentic AI towards physical AI, and that's when it's going to get really interesting. Because then, we really have intelligent robots that can, take over the housekeeping and that kind of stuff. But AI will have a massive effect on everybody's lives going forward. I think in 2 years, the difference is not going to be that big. But, there are times when I think, oh God, if I was 30 years younger, I would see a lot more of this. But very, very exciting times. The business is thrilling. The possibilities are, the sky's the limit. Yeah. So it's very, very exciting. And, being in this business and working with customers and seeing what they're working on and developments that they are actually trying to establish are very, very exciting.
Well, Darren, thank you very, very much for this very interesting interview. I wish you good luck for the rest of the ISC, and have a good time. And I hope to meet you soon.
We will in Rosenheim, promise.